The Guardian today. England's homeschooling surge could become permanent, data suggests. Now look at the language. The headline here says homeschooling. And no doubt the Guardian is aware that there is a huge difference in the UK between homeschooling and home education. A defined difference. Homeschooling in the UK is defined as involving the LA and tends to be financed by them through programmes like EOTAS, for example. Whereas home education is facilitated by the parents and financed by the parents. There's a huge difference. They do then switch to the term home education in the article, but minimise the real reasons behind home ed by belittling philosophical reasons. And without a doubt, they quoted and used philosophical reasons for a reason. They even highlighted it for you. They want that eye roll. They could have picked the more concerning reasons that parents choose to home educate, but they didn't, and they did so deliberately. They do cite preferential reasons without actually providing any example of them. Again, just another way to minimise them. Preferential, not needed or necessary. Preferential, preferred. And then they immediately jump to children missing school due to avoidance and illness. And we've all seen the recent attendance campaign. Now, Whiteman does mention decimated services being a factor, but his response seems misguided. We need better services, not more harassment. And that's both home educators, SEND parents and school avoidance parents. But I do want to point out how this article repeatedly conflates the two. School avoidance, for which there are many reasons, and home education, for which there are many reasons. The review is not good news for the home ed community, and I refer you back to my video on the Welsh guidance because they are very similar. It's a huge overstep on the few parental rights we still have in this country, and don't be fooled into thinking it would be better if or when Labour get back in power, as Labour have never liked home education. The Badman review was awful and took a decade to fight it, essentially, and that was a battle fought hard by the community itself. Labour seem more anti-home ed than the Tories, which may seem surprising, but the Tories tend to be more concerned about the finances, let's be honest. But they conflate the two, going back to my point before, because they want the public to think of home ed children as missing in education, because they're coming for us first, and the SEND parents, the educational fringes of society, knowing it's unlikely that the rest of the population would jump to our defence. And I don't mean that horribly. It's because life is so busy and hectic and takes over that unless something directly affects you a lot of the time, it can be hard to throw yourself into it. It gets pushed to the back of the long queue of everything else. Yet, the only consistent source of information on home ed that the majority of the public tend to see regularly is from the media. The puppet arm of the government, may I add. And although you may not be actively listening to the media or actively reading them, that drip feed of information is a very easy way to program somebody's subconscious to think a certain way when they don't have an alternative sort of evidence to oppose that source of information in the first place. Unless, of course, you do come across home educators on social media. So I feel it's necessary to state that home educated children are not missing an education. They are receiving a full-time education to the age, aptitude and ability of the child. I saw these lovely little posters of information and snippets of motivational tip points on following their education on Instagram and thought it'd be wonderful to add in here. As for those with school avoidance, maybe if the government actually looked into the reasons behind it and acted on those reasons, financed better SEND provision, financed better mental health services for children, and actually looked at the flaws in how education is delivered and implemented in this country, the very curriculum they deliver and how. Maybe they should try implementing it in line with how children learn best according to studies globally. Yet they don't. They point the finger elsewhere. If they actually address the real issues that children are facing today in school, maybe more children would be much happier to attend. Quite frankly, I don't blame them for not wanting to go. In fact, when I have spoken to these children, I can completely understand their reasons and 9 times out of 10 agree with them wholeheartedly. The system is broken. The system is flawed. And a lot of the time, their needs aren't being met by the school. That was my dog snoring. The government don't seem to be taking the children's needs into account or listening to them at all. They're just going on the attack yet again. With such high numbers, the issue is the education system itself, not the children. And until they improve the system and make education for the children and about the children, because at the minute it is just treated like another lucrative business investment, there will always be increasing numbers of school avoiders. Yes, sometimes the reasons for choosing home education can overlap with the reasons behind school avoidance. I say sometimes, but there is a huge overlap there when we consider the two and we speak to the children directly themselves, obviously via the parents who have contacted the home education community for advice. And I think if more parents of school avoiders spoke to home educating parents themselves directly, they too would notice that overlap as well. Not every parent feels in a position to home educate, and there's many that do not even realise it's an option in the first place. Even SEND reform overlaps an awful lot with the issues they are trying to tackle too in the education system, the flaws they are seeing and the failings their children are having to endure. This collective evidence is mounting and very damning in my opinion. I do have to wonder what would happen if we all ever combined our efforts as one united voice. The government need to stop blaming everyone but themselves for this mess. And the media are just puppets on a string. Please do not expect integrity in the media industry.